Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heidi, for those of you who are new here. In today's video, we're going to be doing a wrap up for the month of February and March. I am kind of in a little bit of a book slump. I'm getting myself out of it. It's coming, I'm on the end of my book slump-ish. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like everybody's kind of in a book slump from what I'm seeing. Really sucks. But I haven't done a wrap up because honestly, I didn't really have a whole lot of books to wrap up in my perspective. So I didn't do one for February or one for March. So we're going to combine them into one. So this is a February, March wrap up, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. For the month of February, I do have my laptop in front of me, which has my story graph and my Notion page up, which is where I keep all of my notes and statistics and things like that. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm getting my notes for everything that I read. And so for the month of February, I only read 4 books and DNF 1. Now, I also did have additional books that I planned to read for the month of February, which didn't actually happen. The books that I did not read, though, I've been trying to finish the Lord series. I was going to do a reread of that entire series so I can start the last book that just got released. And I don't know, I couldn't do it. So I'm still kind of in the middle of The Sacrifice, which is book 3. And I have not finished it. I haven't honestly picked up hardly any of it since January. I was planning on trying to finish that in February and it didn't happen. Then I also wanted to read Throne of Broken Gods, which is in the Book of Azrael, whatever series that's called. I think that is book 2. Did not even pick that one up. And then I was also wanting to read Fairy Tale, which I also did not pick up. So there were 3 books I really did want to read that I didn't. Then I did have one DNF, and that one was Sinful Bargain. It was a book that I got off of NetGalley, and it's already been released, but it was still on NetGalley, so I just went ahead and got it from there. This is a historical fiction / mafia romance, and I think I got to 72%. I have my notes, 72. And the problem with this book is I was just getting so bored because I just couldn't connect with Joey, which is the MMC. He's the mafia guy. And then there was Adriana, I think is her name. Yeah, Adriana, who is the FMC. This also takes place I think in the 1950s or so. Does it say? I'm trying to remember. I think it was in the 50s. And I just couldn't connect to either one of those characters. Plus, it was supposed to be like a mafia romance. I never saw Joey do literally anything in the mafia. The mafia was such a sub storyline that it never ever popped up. You had one meeting with him in the mafia and then that was it. And then I felt like there was, the pacing was just a little weird and I got bored. So some of the things that so far, when I got to 72%, that I just never really connected with was, one, Joey is in a relationship of convenience with this other FMC or this other female character for mafia reasons. And he keeps saying that he can't break it off with that other woman, but he never really says why. It goes on and on and on. And I don't know what actually comes about with that relationship in the book because I just didn't get to that part. But Joey just kept on saying he was going to break it off with that female character. Never does. And I don't know why he was holding off on doing it. Because again, mafia really wasn't part of the storyline, hardly at all. And then Joey also found out some things about Adriana's ex. And he said he was going to take care of it. And again, up until the 72% mark, it was discussed. And then nothing ever happened after that. And then the big thing was just there was no mafia in it. It was a weird, I just couldn't connect. I like historical romances. I like mafia romances. I just couldn't connect. And then one of the other big things with this is Adriana has a 13-year-old son and you get into his POV. I don't want to be a 13-year-old boy. I don't want to get that perspective. That is definitely not a perspective I would care to be in. But yet you get into his POV quite often. And I just wasn't into it. So I just ended up DNFing it. It just wasn't for me. like I didn't hate it. It wasn't, I just didn't connect with it. So I put that one aside. Sinful Bargain wasn't really my cup of tea. But then the 4 books that I did end up reading were, I finally read Taming 7 because that is on my 26 books to read in 2026. I want to finish the series up to the point that it's at. And I've just been putting off reading Taming 7, which is Gibbsy and Claire's book. And then the other book is Releasing 10, which I've heard is a very traumatic book. I've just been putting it off. So I finally read Taming 7, which was Gibbsy's book. I ended up giving that book a 4.75, and I absolutely adored that book. I loved the relationship between Claire and Gibbsy, and I loved how caring Claire was to Gibbsy, and like she just really understood him as a person, like all of his issues that he had growing up, and like she was able to identify immediately when Gibbsy was off and like wanted to take care of him. Like she was very considerate of his feelings, and the same thing with Gibbsy. He was very aware of Claire's feelings, how she was acting, like immediately like picked up on literally everything. And I adored their relationship. I loved it. It was not my, like it wasn't a 5-star, but it was so good. I love Gibbsy and Claire, and I cannot wait to see their follow-on book. I can't wait. I love Gibbsy. He is one of my favorite characters in the Boys of Tommen series. I mean, honestly, there's not one character that I've not liked in Boys of Tommen. So, I mean, I guess that's saying something. That's such a good series. So, 4.75, Taming 7. So excited that I got that book read. And now I have Releasing 10, and I don't know when I'm going to be emotionally ready to read that book. But it will be coming. I will read it this year. I just don't know when. And then the other book that I read, I actually listened to this on Audible and I read it on Kindle, so I did like an immersive read, and that was Dungeon Crawler Carl. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel on my thoughts on that book. I feel like I'm in the minority when it comes to the people who enjoy that book. I ended up giving this a 3.5, and I think the problem is, and I said it in that video, I play video games. I love RPG games. That's my favorite type of game to play, which is like a role-playing game if you're not familiar. And I love RPGs, and this is a lit RPG. It's the first one I've ever read, and I feel like if you are new to gaming, I feel like you might really like it. The audiobook was amazing. I will say the narrator is like 10 out of 10 perfect for narration, and I think the story overall was good, but I got very bored, and I felt like I wanted to fast forward through parts because you would get like the NPC, the non-playable character who's like giving the rules of the game. You get them saying, oh, you opened a treasure box, you received da 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 da, you got da 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 da. And I just don't care for that, because like when I play a video game, if I get a treasure box, I look at it, I'm like, okay, cool, I got these pants. Next. And so I just felt like there was a lot of, you got a treasure box, you got this, you got this. Like it was the vocalization of Carl getting the different things in the game. And I just got bored with it. Honestly, it wasn't for me. And I feel like there was things said that was supposed to be funny. Like it was forced funniness, which I didn't think was funny. So like if something is said with the 100% intention of being hilarious, to me, if it feels forced, it's not funny to me. So I don't know. I still am not sure if I'm going to continue with the series, because a lot of times the first book of a series is not my favorite, because you have to learn the characters, you have to learn the story, you have to learn the plot and all that kind of stuff. So usually the first book of a series is not my favorite, but I just don't know if I want to jump into book 2 yet. So we'll see if I continue on, but if not, it was 3.5 for the first book of the series. If you've never played a video game, I feel like it's a really good book. It took me out of the enjoyment of reading and the enjoyment of playing a game, because it just was too much. It just was too much for me. So 3.5, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I feel like it would be good for people who aren't familiar with video games. And maybe I'm wrong, but that was my perspective. The next book that I read was The Split. This is another one I got off of NetGalley, and this one was a arc for that book. I think it would just come out, or is it just about to come out? I ended up giving that one a 3.5 as well. This is also book one of a series. This one follows Jasper and Coda, I think is her name. And it is a zombie, like apocalyptic environment. And it's kind of like a romance, sort of, as well, between these characters. It's got forced proximity. It's a slow burn. So it's not something that they're going to like immediately jump in and start really liking each other. It does have a slow burn. It has a little bit of a hate, like a enemies to lovers type situation. And it brings in the zombies. I'm not a big zombie fan. I'm a chicken when it comes to anything scary, gross, or anything of that nature. I don't like it. I watched a little bit of The Walking Dead through several seasons, and I didn't care for it. I watched it because my husband liked it, my friends liked it. We would all get together and watch it together. And so I would watch it. I did not watch all of it. I don't even remember what season I got to. I have no desire to finish watching that TV show, and so I didn't know how I was going to like this because it does have zombies. And I feel like, again, it's book one. You have to learn the characters. I can see it going forward, and I may end up picking up the next book in the series once it is released. But I did really actually enjoy it. This just came out in March, and it was enjoyable. It was a little sad. There was some sad spots, but it was overall a good book. It was a 3.5. I enjoyed it, and I could see myself picking the next book up in the series just to see what happens with Jasper and Coda and the rest of the group. The last book that I read in February was The Grandest Game. This was book one of the follow-on series from the Inheritance games. This one I ended up giving a 3.75, and this follows a host of characters. There's like 8 to 10 characters that you see in this entire book. So there was a bunch of people that you have to kind of keep track of, which got kind of challenging for being a book one of the series, just because I was trying to remember all the characters, what their personality was, like where they were in the story and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit of a challenge just because there were so many characters that were involved. You did get to see the characters from the Inheritance games. They were actually part of this trilogy, which is nice. And overall, it was a good book. I didn't connect with it like I did with the Inheritance games trilogy, but again, it's book one. Maybe I'll connect with it once I learn more about the characters and I get a little bit more of that connection to the story, the characters, the plot, kind of the whole shebang. But I just wasn't there yet. I really did like Gigi. She was one of my favorite characters in this book so far, and I'm excited to see where she's going to go in the future books. Every time it was her perspective or part of her group, I immediately just zoned into the story when she was involved. And if it was anybody else, I read, but I didn't like it as much. Gigi was like the best character in my perspective of this first book. So I am excited to see where this is going to go. I do have the follow-on book. I have book 2. I don't know how many books are I think it's a trilogy. I don't have all of the books, obviously. I just have book 1 and book 2 in my possession right now. So I will be continuing it on. Just don't know when. So those were the 4 books that I finished in February. And now we'll jump to March, and in March I finished 7 books. I think is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. So it was technically 6 books and 1 manga. So 7 books total if you consider the manga. Manga's kind of a weird situation for me because it's not, while it's like 300 pages, it's different. 300 pages of a manga is way different than 300 pages in a physical book. So I'm going to say 6 books plus a manga. Now, I will go ahead and say that there were quite a few books that I did not finish or even start in the month of March. So let's get those out of the way first. The first book that I wanted to read in March that I did not was Alchemized. This book is just massive and intimidating. I do have this on Audible, so when I do decide to pick it up, I think I'm going to do an immersive read. I think that's going to be easier for me to digest. I have read the fanfic already, so I kind of know the story already, but it's still a chunker of a book. So I wanted to read Alchemized. I just didn't. I also wanted to read One of Us is Next. That is the second book in kind of, I don't know, it's like an interconnected standalone book. That one follows the One of Us is Lying. This is One of Us is Next. I did not pick that up. This was a young adult, like a mystery. It would have been a really easy book to read. I was struggling, so I just wasn't able to read it. Then I wanted to read Sweet Venom, which is the follow-on in a Rena Kent series. I still do want to read that. It will be read eventually, but it just wasn't read in the month of March. I did also want to read Glorious Rivals, which is book 2 to the Inheritance Game follow-on series that I just talked about. I did want to pick up the second book of the series. Again, I just didn't. I also wanted to read Chain of Gold, which is book 1 of a continuation of the Cassandra Clare, like Shadowhunter universe. That's also another massive book that was very intimidating to pick up, so I didn't. And then the last book that I did not read that I wanted to read was Fake Skating. That was by Lynn Painter. That is her most recent book. I know I'm gonna really like it. It's a young adult. It's like a romance. I think this is a young adult version. I know she does adult romance and then young adult romance. I think this is the young adult version. I wanted to read it and I did not. So those were all the books that I did not read in the month of March. And now let's go ahead and talk about the books that I did read. So I did read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This book took me the longest to read. This was 25 days for me to finish this book. I started it on March 1st and I finished it on March the 26th. It took me almost the entire month of March for me to read this book. I gave it a 3.5. And the thing with this book is it follows 3 vampires, which you would assume super cool. Really like reading about vampires. I thought I was going to eat this up. And you see the story follows different timelines also. So you see like the 1500s and then all the way up to like 2019 or something like that. Like in the 2000s is when it comes out to. So you get a huge timeline and you see the progression of these characters. And there was one character I did like to follow. And so when it would jump to other vampires, I got a little bored again. And I think the problem was I was in a book slump. So when I got really engaged in a certain character and it would, after that character was done, if it jumped to a different character, my book slump would like hit hard. And so it was hard for me to keep on track when the character that I was really enjoying, if she was not on the page. It took me forever. And the problem though that I have is this book was like 500 pages. And honestly, I think that could have been reduced by 100 to 150 pages easy. There were a lot of stories of these vampires through the years that it was just story after story after story of them like becoming the vampire and growing and getting their personalities and all that kind of stuff. But there were some things that I just didn't see the point of it. Like it could have, the whole story, some of these stories would be like multiple chapters. And so you would have like 50 to 60 pages of some of these stories that I think it could have just been reduced to a chapter or even half a chapter to get the point across. You didn't need all of that information in my perspective. I just don't think V.E. Schwab is the author for me. I feel like there's too much side story to keep me engaged in the overall character plot. So Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil was 3.5. I definitely can see how people really do like the book. I got very bored. That is the key word for the last couple of months is bored. The next book that I read was Middle of the Night. This was by Riley Sager. And I ended up giving this book a 3.75. I did not write what my thoughts were on this. Did I not put comments? That's very unlike me. I didn't. I did not put any thoughts behind that book. So, yeah. So this book follows the MMC. It's a mystery / thriller. And this character, his name is Ethan. Ethan, yes. Ethan, when he's a boy, he is in his backyard, his fenced in backyard with his buddy. I don't remember his name, but him and his friend were in their backyard in a tent at night. Every like weekend, they would go camping in their backyard. And one day he wakes up in the morning and his tent is ripped and his friend is missing, has been missing. And it's like 20 years later, he moves back to live at his childhood home. And to that day, his friend has never turned up. It's just he disappeared without a trace. And he's had all of these like resentments and the stress and PTSD and that type of thing from that experience. And when he moves back into his mom's house or his parents' house, strange things start happening. And it's the story of what actually happened to his friend. And you have the flashbacks, the past and present, so you kind of see what happened in the past. There's multiple perspectives in this book, and you kind of flip back and forth between past and present into all these different characters from when they were kids into now them being adults. And you can kind of see what actually happened and what went down that fateful night. So I ended up giving it 3.75. I did not get the ending. I didn't expect it. I kind of had a hint, but I wasn't 100% certain on what happened or who did it. And so it was good. I don't really like that many mysteries or thrillers. They're very hard for me to like say it's a 5-star. I don't think there's been hardly any, if at all, mystery / thrillers that have been a 4.5 or above. It's very rare. I am so sorry to all of those like mystery thriller authors. I don't know how you can handle it because it is so hard for me to rate them highly. If I enjoy it, then that's, a 3.75 is a good rating, I think, for a mystery. So I read Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I did read The Dark Lord's Guide to Dating. This was a romantasy book. I had never heard or seen this book before. I stumbled across it when I was at Sam's one day, and I just had to pick it. I loved the cover, so I just immediately was drawn to it. I had to read it. I knew nothing about it. I've never read anything by this author before. This is book 1, and I gave this 4.5. I loved this book. This follows Kaz and Arabella, but I call her Bella. I also have a review. I think this is part of a weekly vlog that's up on my channel. It has me reading it. I read this during spring break, and I really, really, really liked this book. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. I think I've even pre-ordered it already, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like The Dark Lord's Guide to Honeymooning or something like that. So this is so good. I loved the banter between the FMC and the MMC. It does have a kind of morally great character because he's a Dark Lord, the bad guy. It does have a really strong, like Bella is a very strong person when it comes to her thoughts and what she, like her feelings and her wanting to not be taken advantage of and get her way. She was very strong when it came to that. It does have like the one bed close proximity because they had to get married. And so Kaz, said that she will, because they are married, and she will live in his room. So you have the one bed trope, and it was so funny. I laughed and giggled and kicked my feet when it came to this book. It was so good. I read it so fast as well. It was 4.5. It was so good. I cannot wait for the next book to come out in the series. I think it comes out at the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely, if you have not read it, you should pick it up. It is such a good time. It's just one of those really funny banter back and forth between the FMC and the MMC. It was so good. Loved that. Then I also did pick up Heartstopper Volume 1. I have this on Hoopla. I had Volume 1 that I read in March. Really did like it. I did not rate, and I'm not going to rate the mangas because they are a very, very, very quick read. And while I felt for the characters, Nick and Charlie, I just didn't get enough of a connection to them to really like rate those books. And so I did like them. I am continuing. I've already actually read volume 2 in April, but I did not rate it. But it was a good book. It was a good manga. I'm glad I'm reading them. I do have volumes 3 and 4 already downloaded on Hoopla, and I should be able to download volume 5 in April. I just couldn't do it in March. So I do have those downloaded, and I will be continuing the series, and it was really good, and I'm glad I was able to pick it up this month. Then I read In Her Own League. This was the new release by Liz Tom Ford, or Tom 40. I've heard people say it both ways. This is the companion, follow-on, but standalone series from the Windy City series. This follows Reese and Monty. Monty is the dad to Miller, who you see in Caught Up and The Right Move. Those were the 2 books that she showed up on. And I ended up giving this 4.5. Really, 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 really did like this book. It was a really cute book. This is another one where it has a very, very strong FMC. Like, she knows what she wants. She is the new owner to the baseball team that Monty is the field manager for. And so she has to kind of deal with being a woman in a male-driven profession. And so she has her head up, she has to be strong, and she has to know what she wants to do being the new owner and having to deal with the men who don't think that she belongs there. And seeing her relationship with Monty, and Monty just being the absolute perfect MMC, it was such a good time. I will say though, there was one part in the book that I did not like. It was one little part that Monty had said that made me cringe and just immediately not like in this book. And that was, Reese is a heavier set girl. She's like size 16 or so, 14, 16. And in this particular part, Monty is basically in the gym, working out, doing squats, getting strong. He is a big, muscular, tough guy. And the overall gist of this statement was he works out heavy because he needs to be able to lift her. Like, her body style is just what he wants, and he works out to be able to handle it in the gist of it. Did not like it. Overall, it was a good book. 4.5. I was glad to be back in the Windy City series, or the world, and seeing some of those characters, and it was a really fun time. The next book that I read was, I actually listened to this on audio. I got this off of Libby. This is Made for Each Other by Lynn Painter. I ended up giving this 4 stars. This follows Declan and Abby. And Abby is a maid kind of struggling to get by, and she is the maid in Declan's house. And Declan is a billionaire. He is single, and he has been basically telling his parents that he is dating this woman named Abby, who is fake. He made up a fake girlfriend named Abby, coincidentally, and he's been kind of dating her for a while just to appease his parents and appease his company, because his company basically thinks that he can't move up if he is not a family man. He needs to have stability. And so to appease everybody, he starts dating this girl named Abby, who happens to actually be the name of the maid in his house. He does not know this. And one day, Abby has to live in his room or his house. One day, he did not know this because her apartment was being like fumigated or something, and she had to find some place to stay overnight. And because she knew Declan was out of town, because she's his maid, she decides just to stay at his house. And lo and behold, his parents show up that morning, see her in his house. Her name is Abby. They knew he was dating an Abby, and they just assume that is his girlfriend. And so they have to fake date, and eventually they are going to be breaking up and all that kind of stuff. And it was a really, really funny book. I really did like the relationship between Declan and Abby. It was a fun time. I love Lynn Painter books, so I knew I was going to enjoy this book, and I really did. I'm glad I found it on Libby and listened to it and had a really, really, really good time. And then the last book that I read in the month of March was Savor It. This was another audiobook. This one was by, I don't have her name, I think it was like DeWitt, Catherine DeWitt or something like that. I gave this also 4 stars. This was an audiobook. This followed Fisher and Sage. and it is a little romance, a rom-com. And in this book, Fisher is a chef in New York. He had gotten Michelin stars, and his life just kind of tumbled a little bit. He lost a Michelin star, he got fired from his position, and basically is told he needs to go in over the summer, move to the small town, and help build a new restaurant. And once summer is over, if he is successful, then he could come back to New York and get his job back and become a chef again. And so he does that. He moves to this town and he ends up meeting Sage, who was like the town sweetheart. And he ends up living right next door to her in like an Airbnb. And they end up having to do the fake dating thing also to kind of help him out and also to help her out. And it was a really good book. I did enjoy it. I will say with this book though, I enjoy when books in the story, they reference the book title. Like having it saying savor it in the story. I do like that. I like when the book title shows up within the story. However, this book, I swear the term savor it, savor, savoring, some version of savor showed up so often in the book that it took me out of the story because it was just another like, let's throw the name out in front of you. Let's throw the name out again. Let's throw the name out again. And it took me out of the story and I did not enjoy that. So I did not, I knocked off some points because I got very out of the book every single time that showed up, and it showed up quite often. If it wasn't for that, it probably would have been like a 4.25 or maybe even a 4.5. I couldn't connect every single time I read that part or heard that part. I immediately remembered I was reading a book. Like my brain clicked back to the present and I wasn't in the story anymore. So it was a 4-star. I did like it. It was just very irritating when savor kept popping up so often in the book. Oh, I also did have another DNF in the month of March. This is not a DNF forever though. This is a DNF for now. This was How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. I was really intrigued when I saw that this new release was coming out. The cover just sounded so fun. And I read this one a couple of chapters. I got it on Libby as a like skip the line version, so I only got it for 7 days. And this was in like the peak of my like book slump, and I just couldn't get into it enough to want to continue to read it. So I ran out of time. I only had those 7 days, and I just couldn't hold on to it anymore because there were people waiting in line for the book. So I did have to return it and I wasn't able to read it. I do still want to read it though. This one I think is something having to be involved with a like, it's like where the dating where like you go and you have a bunch of people, a bunch of girls sit at a table and then the guys kind of rotate and you have that type of like dating scheme and you know, see if you connect with any particular person to match up with. I do not know what that's called, but it has something to do with that. And then also I think it has to do with like a serial killer, potentially, not sure, but the concept seemed really interesting. I just was in a book slump and I ran out of time. This is a DNF for now. I will end up picking this back up sometime in this 2026 timeframe. Just don't know when. So that was all of the books that I read and my thoughts on them for the months of February and March. Like I said at the very beginning, I feel like I'm coming out of my book slump. I have already had some really, really, really fun days reading the books that I'm currently reading in the month of April. So I'm hoping that trend continues and I have a really good month and I start really getting out of this book slump that I'm in. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I really do appreciate those of you who have subscribed recently. Thank you so much. And I will see everybody in my next video. Bye.